What's going on, everybody? Assalamu alaikum for all of us here on the West Coast. Thanks for joining us. Weekly conversation with BCG, Bridging Cultural Gaps, organization based in Tukwila, Washington, that does work in the East African community, works with youth, and works to basically rectify some of the issues and ensure that our community has access to resources, that our community has access to every single thing that's going to allow them to be successful in all facets of life. So our conversation today is going to be about gentrification, specifically in our communities in Seattle, but it's also happening in many other cities. So some of the things that we touch on is probably going to resonate with people in places like Minneapolis and LA and other parts of the world, because this is not really a West Coast or a Northwest problem. This is something that's happening, I guess, across the world right now. Without further ado, I want to introduce Brother Abdullah Petty. He is an advocate. He works with the community. He works with youth. He has years of experience. He's also a basketball coach. I'm going to let him introduce himself, and then we'll get going into the conversation. Abdullah, welcome.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Deontay Abdullah Sharif Petty. I'm involved in the community in many aspects. I'm no longer a basketball coach. Alhamdulillah, I just served my last year at Cleveland High School. But I'm an avid entrepreneur. I'm also in the nonprofit sector. And I've been doing nasheeds or hip-hop nasheeds, acapellas, whatever you want to call them. Got my Trewu shirt on, alhamdulillah. Just an avid, community advocate. I emphasize community a lot.
Thanks for joining us, bro. So usually we have these conversations on Sunday night. I want to thank Ayanla, Executive Director of BCG, for putting these conversations together. Partnership with Nomadic Hustle in our podcast to raise awareness about some issues locally here in Seattle that are impacting East Africans, but also every single person that lives in this area. So we really want to just get into gentrification today, right? If you could tell us, we hear this word a lot, but not many people know what it actually means. So let's start off by that. What is gentrification?
Man, in layman's terms, is displacement. To be displaced from your natural environment, from your culture, from your community, somewhere that you've built up, to be displaced from there. That's the easy translation.
So in displacement in East African community, we think of displacement as a lot of people live in a place. It might end up being a war zone, and then you got to get up and leave everything behind and move to a safer area. And I think likewise, obviously, this isn't a result of a war zone. I mean, it might be an economic war, right? And I think in like terms, you have situations where in certain areas in Seattle, entities show up. Don't wage war directly, but something happens, and then the people that born and raised in that area have to pick up everything and move either south or north.
It don't have to be war. It's an oppression. You know what I mean? And whether it be economic oppression, or warfare, psychological, whatever it may be, resources, it's oppression is what it comes down to, being displaced because of oppression. Obviously, when it comes to America, we know how the system is set up. We know the foundation of the system. We know how people of color have been getting treated since Plymouth Rock. You know what I mean? So it's in America's foundation to oppress people of color, to oppress the real majority. And unfortunately, we have to deal with the after effects even in 2020. So I wouldn't just say it's just warfare. I mean, it's just straight up oppression.
Okay. So have you personally seen any events? Have you seen gentrification? You said you're born and raised in Seattle, right? So over the last 25, 30 years of your life, what has that looked like? Can you give us examples that you've seen with your own eyes?
Man, I've dealt with it in my own family dynamic. My father's side, my paternal side, is from the Central District, from the Valley, and they had a house on Deuce 8, and they've had to sell their housing, and obviously there's opportunity zones, so they've been building apartments. They've been tearing down different buildings over there, like the Red Apple. And now we're seeing it in the Central District. I mean, Rainier is now a one-lane road. It started off being, squished into 2 lanes, and now it's a one-lane road on each side. In my in my own family, my mother and I had we lived. My mother and my stepfather, right around the time I took my shahada, we had lived in Skyway. We had got pushed to Skyway, and by the time came around for us to purchase this house, it was an Asian owner, and he had continued to increase the price, so we weren't able to afford it. And I was in college and struggling, and it put me in a position where I now had to like sleep on my grandma's couch next to a Najas dog every night, take
Man,
cold showers, and pick my outfits out of the box for my last year of college, all because of the increase of the cost of living in South Seattle. And my mother also experienced some issues until she was able to purchase a home. Her and my stepfather in Kent, but they've now been displaced out of Seattle and they're in South King County. Alhamdulillah, man, I worked hard to remain in the city, and that's one of my battles. Right now I'm in Skyway, unincorporated King County. But yeah, like 100%, I've experienced it. I fight hard to stay in Seattle and stay in my community so I could be, arm's reach of the people who may or may not need me and the youth. But yeah, it's something I see all the time.
you know what's wild that you're saying you're fighting to stay in Seattle. Like
Yeah,
people don't really understand the concept of like, because from one angle, a lot of people have the sentiment where, hey, if you want to live in Seattle, just make more money. You know what I mean?
yeah,
The lens that they're looking at it is like, if like it's strictly capitalistic.
yeah,
The people who deserve to be in Seattle are the ones that can afford it.
yeah,
And is that how you build a community? Is that how you empower people in a community, by basically giving away your communities and your areas of recreation to the highest bidder, right? So
yeah,
from a as a municipality, like, is that a good strategy for Seattle to basically just bid out, long-term residents, people that were born and raised in Seattle like yourself? And now you're saying like you're fighting to stay in there. And
yeah,
a lot of people, they don't really put a face to gentrification. It's
yeah,
just numbers, right? They're like, home prices are going up, rents going up. They're looking at the stock market. They're saying this is the best time ever. And the question is, for who?
yeah. I mean, I think America is a capitalistic nation, and so uh, how can we expect anything different from Seattle, which is the next Silicon Valley? You know what I mean? It's the gold rush. This is now the tech rush. People are moving up here to get into the tech industry, and you look at some of the disparities. As liberal as Seattle may talk about, they may try to imply that they're a super liberal city. When you look at the disparities, we're not that liberal. We look at the disparities in the education and wealth distribution. You look at disparities when it comes to the tech hiring practices. We're not as liberal as we say, and obviously the repercussions of that is there continues to be disparity when it comes to housing, access to housing, affordable housing. So, naturally we get displaced. Um, when it comes to Seattle, man, like obviously there's been different promises and there's been different programs. You got you got the MFTE program and tax credit programs that try to make it hold up affordable units for people of color, or they don't say people of color, but they people who are not at a certain income level. However, that's only a select few people that come from our communities, and it's something that everybody from anybody from Seattle can access these programs as well. And it's crazy because a lot of the people, white people, who move into our communities, you know what they say every time? Oh, I love the culture here. I have Somali food. I have Hispanic food. I have access to all these different places. It's so cultural. But
Man,
really, they're part of that process of what? They're
gentrifying it.
diminishing our culture.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, they love it. And you look at historically, like poor people used to live in Seattle.
Yeah.
When you look at any major city, poor people used to live in the center of the city. You used to want to live in the suburbs and outside the city. And now with all these tech companies and all the, technological advancements with transportation, and you can just catch the light rail, it's like, okay, now you want to live in Seattle, and now there's so much culture and there's so much richness that we've built in our communities. Now they want that. They want to take that from us. It's a paradox, man.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So the question then becomes, who are the gentrifiers, right? We know what gentrification looks like, but who's the culprit in this situation?
Hey, that gentrifiers is white people, and I got no shame in saying that. I'm not saying I don't have white friends, or I have anything against all white people, but gentrifiers are typically white people, and if not, it's people in the tech industry who majority, white. Um, and if you look at our communities and who's getting, who's moving and migrating to our communities, it's majority white people. So, I mean, as far as Seattle goes, I'm gonna keep it a buck.
The craziest thing is, I used to live in, when I was younger, I grew up in Boston, right? So the area I lived in was 99% black back in the early 2000s, right?
Yeah.
The elementary school I went to had one white kid in it, right? And we're talking kindergarten to 6th grade.
Yeah.
One white student, just reflective of the area and the community that's there. I went back like in 2011, it's like reversed.
Yeah.
It's almost the complete opposite. This area where you couldn't even pay white folks to be there.
Yeah.
20 years ago, you could even pay them to come there. Like there's no amount of money that would have brought them to that area. But now,
I'll tell you something crazier. I'm an alumni of Cleveland High School, and excuse me, I might get the statistics wrong and misconstrued. I'm an alumni at Cleveland High School. At one point, Cleveland was one of the most ratchet ghetto schools in the city of Seattle. You know what I mean? It was notorious, and I've witnessed it. I was a part of like that last generation that kind of got to see that aspect of Cleveland, and it was majority Black and Asian, Hispanic, and alhamdulillah, I've been coaching there for the last 6 years. And what I've seen is now that Cleveland has become a STEM school and has better, education aspects, the school is now majority white and Asian. And a lot of the black kids cannot even get in.
Wow.
And a lot of, there was kids of color who tried to transfer into Cleveland, of course, because of basketball and the academics, but they were denied. And a lot of it would have to do with politics and academia. But I see my own school. I'm an alumni at, you know what I mean? I've seen the whole demographic change. And it's all because of gentrification, 1, and 2, the STEM program. And who gets access to that STEM program? That's all politics, man. And
so why do they have to wait till the school is predominantly non-black to give it resources, right? Why wasn't there a STEM program when it was a predominantly black school? Why wasn't there funding when it was a predominantly black school? Why does it take gentrification to bring resources into this community?
Man, why does it take gentrification to start getting more public safety in our communities? You know what I mean?
And some healthy food.
Now they want to start setting up police antennas in the Safeway parking lots. You know what I mean? Like, come on, man. Like we've seen our communities transform crazy. Now it's safe for white people to go out running at night with their dogs.
Hey, that leads me to my next question, bro. What are some signs of gentrification?
Oh, absolutely, dog walking. Now I'm joking, man. I mean, I think public transportation, like light rails and stuff like that, I think that's huge, and I think the light rail had a huge impact on gentrification. Housing, when you see housing developments. Apartments and stuff, condos. We've seen a lot of condos go up in South Seattle. I mean, I think there's different signs. I mean, if depending on which industry you're into, I've been trying to get into to commercial estate, and they classify South Seattle as opportunity zoning. And there's taxes and there's different benefits around taxes and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, it depends on what industry, it might look different. But the signs. When your community starts.
There's a few grocery stores that if you see them, you're screwed.
Yeah, come on, man.
There's a few spots where,
and don't get me wrong, some of these guys, some of these corporations are my partners, but the Whole Foods, the PCCs.
If you see a PCC or a Whole Foods in your neighborhood,
oh man, the grocery prices is gonna rise, the cost of living gonna rise.
You're gonna see a bunch of brands you never seen before. You're gonna start paying
$8. You're no longer gonna live in a food desert. You're gonna have access to a lot of organic food options. You're gonna have access to a lot of healthier food options and kale chips and all the good stuff, man. You're gonna have access to it.
Man. All right, man. Usually these run about 15, 20 minutes. I have a
Yeah.
couple more, then we're gonna wrap it up.
Oh, come on.
Are there racial components to gentrification? Abdullah Petty, is it really a black white issue? I mean, are there instances where gentrification looks like something else? Because I mean, if I play the devil's advocate for a second, I mean,
Yeah.
is it just white folks gentrifying, and is it just black folks getting gentrified? Are we seeing Asian neighborhoods being displaced? Are we seeing
I would hit that back.
ethnicities
I would
being
ask you
displaced?
a question: is there racial divide in economic disparities? You know what I mean? At the end of
I
the
mean,
day,
I ask the questions around here, brother. No, I'm just
yeah,
playing. I
I
mean,
don't think that it's I don't think it's as simple as saying it's a black and white issue.
Mhm.
But I think that if you tackle on, I mean, a study came out about a year ago, and I could be wrong. It might have been two, but Seattle was now like the most educated city in the whole U.S. Right? And so I'm like, damn, we made some progress.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm not. Let me go do some further research. So I'll go and look at what are our high school rankings nationally. We're not even top 25 nationally as far as our education in high school. So what does that mean? It means that a lot of people are migrating towards our city who have bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, PhDs, and they're getting these high-paying jobs with the Amazons, with the Microsofts, um, with everybody's migrating up here for tech, basically, and other opportunities. But with that, I mean, a majority of people I wouldn't say are African American, and the majority of those people are looking for housing in our communities. Like I said, I don't think it's as simple as calling it a black and white issue. I think it's really an economic disparity, which can trickle all the way down into education, policing, with just the way that our government chooses to deal with the people of color in our city. I feel like we can trickle it down to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so we've talked a lot about the issues of gentrification. What do you think would be solutions? What do you think is going to get us closer to a solution?
I mean, people make promises all the time. You got people who lobby for the black community to get more resources. I think the plight of people of color just in our city alone is very multifaceted. We deal with a lot of stuff in our communities, from gun violence um, to economics to gentrification and whatnot. I As far as the solution, man, I think it's I think that people need to keep their promises as far as the government. You know what I mean? As doing stuff for the black community. I think that there's a lot of nonprofit organizations. You got BCG, you got the Urban League, you got nonprofits that they focus around creating economic parity for people of color. Um, I think it's on us to buy black, to support our local stores, to support people in our community. And I think more than anything right now with everything that's going on, I think black people, Africans, African Americans, people of color, we need to start a coalition, and we need to start making demands and start working together and unify to meet those demands. I mean, it's crazy right now. I don't want to go on a tangent, but you know, it's like a second civil rights movement going on right now. You know what I mean? With what's going on, and everybody all of a sudden wants to recognize that we've been getting killed by the police for I don't know how long. Now that's getting caught on camera. And now you have all these organizations and community leaders, community advocates, people with voices, people with influence, people with access to resources. Not everybody has something to say. Everybody wants to lead this plight. Everybody wants to make certain demands. But if we don't unify and come together, it's like we'll never meet those demands. And it's crazy because I've seen the opposite of that. I've seen actually people speak negatively about each other. I've seen people who lead organizations discriminate and separate themselves from others. And it's very sad because when it trickles down to the people who are in the streets, they always want to say something about the youngins and how they operate in gangs and this and that. But it's the same thing on the higher level with people with access to resources and influence. They're divided amongst themselves, and some of it's getting real deep. You know what I mean? I'm not too in the loop with everything, but I've seen a lot and I've heard a lot, and I'm connected to a lot of people, alhamdulillah. So I feel like, man, the biggest thing that we could do is unify and make demands to the government together, and you know, amongst ourselves, like really, you know, be intentional with how we spend our money, with how we use our money, and how we save and and if it comes down to it, man, sitting down with some of the corporations that are in our communities and making demands to them too. You want to open a PCC in a neighborhood? Guess what? We need to put black products in your PCC, and it's not that hard because I've been in these conversations. It's not as hard. We think of it as an unattainable measure, but we got access to all that. You're muted.
Appreciate it, Abdullah.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on today in this Sunday conversation with BCG. We're going to try to keep it going, inshallah, every single Sunday. You made a lot of great points, great insight into gentrification, short and sweet, you know, to the point today. I want to thank everybody who's been watching us. If you guys want to get in contact, Abdullah, we'll put his contact information, the organization, and everything. You can get in contact through BCG with him, some of the work that he does. You can find that online. And we want to thank you guys again for watching. Abdullah, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Nah, man, just it's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me. I do want to connect with you. I know you talked, you made some good points about, you know, studying the deen in Egypt, and I have some youngins who actually, you know, make that trip, and me and Isam are also considering that. So I want to tap in with you one-on-one, inshallah, sometime. But nah, thank you for having me, and you know, the good is from Allah, the bad is from my own soul, man.
Jazakallah khair. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you guys next Sunday. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.